Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor, and this town is all abuzz about this leak that came out of the Defense Department about our operations, not just in Ukraine, but in other areas of the world as well. It's a pretty damaging leak. But when I say this town is all abuzz about it, what this town is really all abuzz about is trying to find out who leaked it and to tell you, the American people, that you have no right to see what is in this leak. So let's talk about what's in the leak. Right? I mean, that's why you come here anyway. We're not like everyone else in this town. Neither is Tony Shaffer from Project Sentinel. He's a former U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel and author of Operation Dark Heart. And, well, you were an intel officer as well, CIA trained, so you know a little thing or two about top secret information. Have you had a chance to look at this leak?
Oh, most certainly. And I've looked at the documents, and I tend to believe, like others who've been credible on this, that they're authentic. They look like they came out of some sort of a briefing in the Pentagon. That's the most likely location from just the headers and footers. And I think it's all indications are that, like you said, Larry, they don't want you looking at them because, geez, it says things they don't want you to know.
Yeah, and it's funny, the Washington Post has a big expose. They're trying to get to the bottom of who the leaker is, and they're decrying the leaker, and the fact that this got leaked is awful, it's terrible, it's horrible. This is the Washington Post. Where were they during Watergate, talking to Deep Throat? You know, I mean, they live off of leaks. They're angry that they didn't get the leak.
No doubt, and I think this is in many ways like that leak. The Pentagon Papers did a similar thing during the Vietnam War to call out the fact that LBJ and the entire government was lying about the Vietnam War and its success. Same thing here. And Larry, you know, I hope your audience notes that you have been, by a fact that we've had this conversation, you were ahead of everybody on the issues that are now revealed in those documents, because we've been talking about everything that now has been told as truth. We've talked about for the past 6 months. So it's very clear that the narrative here of what they were putting out is not what the reality is based on these documents.
Yeah, the leak definitely backs up a lot of the things that you've been telling us from your sources at the Pentagon. So let's get to those details, because again, like I said, mainstream media, they want to follow. The White House says nobody should report on this, so suddenly they're all marching in line and not reporting on this. We're going to report on it. What have we learned about our operations in Ukraine? What's the biggest headline to you?
Well, the confirmation, Larry, that there are boots on the ground. I mean, this is one of those things that they always deny.
That we have U.S. boots, military boots in Ukraine,
which has now been confirmed by John Kirby. Yes, it's like, okay, yeah, you kind of caught us. Yeah, come on, we said this. And plus, they're not even disclosing, Larry, the number of contractors who were there to run the advanced technology and other systems which we've given them. So it's one of those things where, you know, I wish I was wrong, but I know how these things tend to go.
Yeah.
And if they're saying 100, it's probably 3 times that. And if they're saying they're stuck to the embassy, these guys are out front. So just
what's the point of having special forces there if they're just going to hang out in the embassy? That makes no sense.
I know these guys, they don't like hanging out by the coffee by the coffee pot drinking coffee. Just saying.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
And then to that.
Well, and let's just be clear what we're talking about, because when we had you on, then they were talking about sending M1 tanks over there and all of this high-level missile, anti-missile, anti-tank missiles and all that. You said on this program, you said they don't know how to use this, the Ukrainians.
Right.
And the only way for it to properly operate and to be maintained is if U.S. military personnel and contractors are there. And that's what we've got.
Right. And then to be effective in combat, like to actually fulfill the advice they're being given, these guys are out front advising. You know, I mean, that's one of the reasons the Ukrainians have been as effective as they are, Larry, because for better or for worse, they've been U.S. led, which opens a whole nother Pandora's box, which I don't think we want to go into today. But it does indicate that, you know, clearly they've been lying about this. Secondly, another area which they've been lying about is the numbers. Larry, I remember there was great controversy when I came in and said, hey, they're lying about the numbers of dead on the Ukrainian side. Oh, my goodness, you know, this is terrible. No, it shows that the Ukrainians are losing 7-1, and there's no way to replenish those soldiers that they're losing on the ground. So I think that's the other big headline, is that they've been lying about the success of the campaign.
Well,
and yeah, go ahead.
What are the numbers, if you've got them off the top of your head, Tony, in terms of the casualties? Because this undermines the position that the United States government has taken with Ukraine with regard to moving toward a negotiated peace or a
Right.
ceasefire. Any suggestion that there should be a ceasefire is like, oh, that's just what Putin wants. You don't want that. Well, if they are losing this many on a weekly, monthly basis in Ukraine, then the only humane thing to do is move towards some kind of ceasefire.
Well, I believe in your point complete. Yes, I agree with you. But I think that if you look at the numbers, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's something like 16,000 KIA on the Russian side, 80, I think 80 plus thousand KIA on the Ukrainian side. It's significant. It's something like 7-1.
Yeah.
And those just killed. And I, by the way, Larry, I think those numbers are soft. I think they're really soft. I think it's well over 100 for the Ukrainian losses. And this is what I've said before. I've said not only on your show, but it's like the Russians are in no rush, so to speak. The Russians are in no rush to go on the offensive if you can degrade your enemy by letting your enemy come at your forces and kill themselves. And that's what they've been doing. It's like, oh, they're degrading the Russian forces. Yeah, but at what cost? If you're losing 7-1 to degrade their forces, that's not winning. And there's no way you're going to be able to replenish those forces for an offensive.
But,
and I think that's
Russia has an endless
headline.
supply of cannon fodder that they can keep up there. If this is going to be a long game, grinded out kind of conflict, Russia wins. Russia wins.
And I said it's all a numbers game. It's all a numbers game.
And it's not like Vladimir Putin needs to
about.
worry about public support at home because he's an authoritarian dictator. He doesn't care. So, I mean, I guess the question here is then, where's the oversight in the House of Representatives? Because the real problem here, Tony, in the same way that the media doesn't want to cover this, unlike Vietnam, the media seems to be in favor of this military conflict. They seem to be in favor of all this killing in Eastern Europe. And so do Republicans in Congress as well as Democrats. I mean, I don't see the stomach for anybody in the actual role of oversight to call out these people from the administration and the Pentagon and say, hey, you've been lying to us.
Right. Well, who benefits from the leak? And I think it's the Biden administration, believe it or not. This allows them to change the narrative, say, okay, we've been lying to you. But it's so bad now, we need more. And I think that's what they're going to do with this. They're going to say, oh, you know, things are really bad.
Hold
we
on.
need to go to
Hold on. People have to understand how cynical Washington, D.C. is. And Tony knows. He's been around for a couple of decades now. Things are going great in Ukraine. That's why you need to give us $100 billion. Things are going really bad in Ukraine. That's why you have to give us $100 billion. This is the classic heads I win, tails you lose argument.
Exactly. And that's why I'm looking at this, Larry, because of exactly what you just said. All the usual suspects have been lying. The lie didn't work. They didn't convince anybody. It's like, okay, we have to go the other way. I mean, come on. A 20-year-old kid sitting in front of his computer got a hold of these documents and leaked them. Give me a break.
So you're not buying this. This is the narrative that's out there right now is that some guy in the military who had access to it put it out in a Discord chat to impress a bunch of, wargaming nerds out there. You're not buying it.
Look, they lied about Vietnam. They lied about Afghanistan to the members of Congress, and they're lying about this. This is what most administrations do. I've seen it when I was in service. I once sat in a briefing where a senior executive service guy, we'll just call him Bill, and I won't give his last name, actually said, lie to Congress about the numbers. So this is routinely done, and there's no consequences, Larry. You know, Jim Clapper, oh, yeah, we're spying on the American people. What? I lied about it, so what? So that's why you see these big lies being perpetrated and nobody being willing to call them out. This is, I think, another example of that.
Tony Shaffer lives in the dark, dark underworld of military intelligence, and sadly, he's usually right about all of these disconcerting things. Thanks for joining us. There's more to come on O'Connor's.